We are the station that all the stations listen to. Invicta 98.9 FM.
Good morning and welcome to the third week of the show. And this is the show Value for Money radio program, Kaduna State. And the program is brought to you by Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative. It's a Nigerian non-profit organization established in 2016 with missions to advance accountability, foster good governance, and enhance development in marginalized and undeserved communities by promoting active citizens' engagement with the public audit system and the processes in Nigeria. PLSI's vision is to ensure public accountability necessary for good governance and development of Nigeria becomes a norm. PLSI work revolves around 6 strategic domains, including value for money, that's revenue and expenditure, research, policy and advocacy, citizens' participation, engagement and involvement, climate change adaptations and energy accountability, institutional support and capacity strengthening, as well as gender equality accountability. PLSR uses a combination of research, policy advisory, advocacy, civic tech, public sensitizations, and multi-stakeholder dialogue and collaboration to achieve social change. Welcome to the third week of the show. Last week we took a look at audit issues in Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Human Services and Social Development, and Ministry of Education. Today on the show, we will be taking a look at the topic audit issues in Ministry of Health, Ministry of Youth and Sport, and Ministry of Agriculture. My name is Jeffrey Ngbedi Odiku. My guest on the show today via Zoom is Mr. Abdullahi Adebayo, Program Officer, Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative. Still waiting for him to connect. And seated with me right here in the studio is Mr. Yusuf Goje, Head of Governance and Advocacy Coalition of Association for Leadership, Peace, Empowerment and Development. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Last week, we took a look at a lot of things which we actually discussed. Now, today, we'll give a recap of the episode of Value for Money radio program yesterday. Can you just recap what was being discussed the previous week?
All right. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for the good work you're doing in enlightening citizens around their rights and obligations in ensuring that governments are accountable for what they had promised to do. Last week on the program Value for Money, we were able to look at 3 institutions where audit issues were identified and were not addressed in 2021 and which started in 2020. The first ministry that was looked at by Abdullahi Adebayo was the Ministry of Justice, where about 34 million naira was said to be unaccounted for. Also, the Ministry of Human Services and Social Development, where about 4.6 million naira was also said to be unaccounted for. And the last ministry was Ministry of Education, where about 127 million is yet to be accounted for, and this is 2-3 years after that query was issued to these MDAs. And also during the last episode, we looked at the implications of these unaccounted funds and the lack of response to these queries around public financial management and the development of the state and the risk involved. And we looked at some of the fiscal indicators for Kaduna State around revenue performance and debt and other areas, and we linked it up with how these monies that should have gone into providing probably healthcare services or educational services, or even issues around law and order were missed, because probably these monies, nobody can justify how they were applied, were due process adhered to, and at the end of the day, were these monies used for what they are supposed to do. So, in summary, those are the areas that were looked at. We had a number of callers that also were excited that issues around audit were being discussed, and probably some wondered, since 1999 we've been talking about accountability, and nothing seems to have really changed according to their opinion. But I believe they were further educated as to the changes that have happened over the time, even though they might not be as rapid as people want or evident as people want. But a lot has changed from 1999 to now, as regards accountability, as regards transparency, and even as regards citizens' engagement and government responsiveness to that engagement. So that's a quick summary of what we discussed in the last edition of the Value for Money radio program.
All right, still waiting for Abdullahi Adebayo to connect via Zoom, and if probably we can't get him on Zoom, I think we'll just better connect him via telephone calls to see if we can. Mr. Abdullahi, can you hear me? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
Okay, we can't see your face today. I hope all is well.
Yes, all is well actually. Let me try to turn on my video so that you can see me.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. You look good, sir. So there's no need hiding the face. All right. So, Mr. Adebayo, let's quickly your organization's review of the 2020 and 2021 report of the Auditor General for Kaduna State reveals that the Kaduna State Ministry of Agriculture has one audit issue with 471.6 million naira not accounted for. Can you discuss that more?
All right, thank you so much. It's actually a pleasure to have me on the show today. Good morning, everybody, and good morning, listeners at home. So just a quick one, and just to say that I had what Mr. Yusuf has actually been saying since, and trying to give a recap around why accountability is important, and of course for the case of Kaduna, and like you said, the issue around the Ministry of Agriculture is actually a very let me say a kind of issue that Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So, all right. So as I was saying, so the issue is actually where we have about 471.6 million naira not accounted for in that Ministry of Agriculture. So what we actually discovered and what the auditor reported was that the fact that when during the examination of the during the audit exercise actually, and of course when they visited the agency to the ministry to actually audit their books for the year 2020 financial year actually, because the issue was actually carried over to that of 2021, which actually states that the issue was not cleared by the PAC of the State of Assembly as at that period. So and of course, so what actually happened was that they discovered that some payment was actually made without provision of payment voucher, like we said earlier. These are things that we've actually seen that is actually peculiar to different agencies of government, different ministries in Kaduna State. Looking at the fact that they don't actually provide supporting documents to back up all their expenditures, or perhaps maybe there are issues that cuts across have been may not preparing the internal audits, because certainly like we discussed last week, there are laws, there are rules that actually guides public finance management, or that actually guide expenditures in public sector, which actually say that even before the procurement processes, before you disburse money for procurement processes, the reason why we have internal auditors across agencies of government is for them to actually conduct a kind of internal audit, to do like a kind of pre-audit, to look at the efficiency of this expenditure, but of course, and also to prepare their reports and certify that the money should be disbursed, or the procurement process should move forward. But unfortunately, the reverse is the case with this Ministry of Agriculture, because the issue actually in this says that they did not provide all the documents that actually back up both the pre-audit and also the expenditure, the receipt to back up all this expenditure that amounted to about 471.6 million. So that's how what the issue looks like in the Ministry of Agriculture in Kaduna State.
Let's also discuss the audit findings in the Ministry of Health, as highlighted in the 2020 and 2021 audit report of Kaduna State government.
All right. The same thing is more to that of the health sector also, but one thing that is actually interesting with all these agencies of government, for instance, is the fact that these are agencies of government that has a kind of, they have huge significance when it comes to development in the states, and when it comes to even, poverty eradication, looking at the Human Development Index of the state. Certainly, these are key agencies of government that speaks a lot to social sector, to enhancing more development state. Fortunately, we've seen a whole lot of different misappropriation of funding, funds not being accounted for across these agencies of government. And of course, looking at that of health also, where we have about 11.6 billion not accounted for in that same financial year. Of course, the issue still boils down to outstanding payment voucher not being produced during the process of the audit. And of course, the significance of this payment voucher speaks to talking about what the payment is meant for. Looking at evaluating the process of the payment and what is actually meant for, who the payment is being paid to, and to see how it complies with the extant rules and regulations, especially looking at the financial regulation of the state, to see whether this payment actually aligns with what the laws that have been put aside to ensure public resources are being efficiently managed. But unfortunately, the cases here is the fact that probably the commissioners in charge, or the heads in charge, has just expend this money without even giving a call to the rules and regulation, or without providing necessary document to back up this expenditure. And of course, a sum of 11.6 million could not be accounted for in the process, which means that perhaps maybe the money has actually been paid to an individual account, or probably the money was diverted. There can be a lot of speculations around this, in as much you can't properly account to it to say or to justify what the money is being paid for, or what the money is actually being expended on, whether it has any significant impact when it comes to delivering improving service delivery to the citizens of the state. So that's the same thing that is applicable to that of Ministry of Health in Kaduna State.
All right. So quickly, to Mr. Yusuf Goje, what impact or probably the risk do you think these audit issues will have on public finance management and the accountability ecosystem in Kaduna State?
Well, with monies like this being unaccounted for, it continues to weaken the financial system in the state, because the financial system is made up of guidelines and regulations that are clearly stipulated, and many of them backed by law. For example, in Kaduna State, you have the Public Finances Law 2016, you have the Fiscal Responsibility Law also of 2016, you also have the Auditor General Audit Law 2021. So these are laws that have been put out there to guide how government manages funds. So what this means is that as long as government ministries, departments, and agencies continue to flout these laws, then it means that monies that have been appropriated by the legislature for purposes of security and welfare of the people will continue to be mismanaged, and wastages and leakages will continue to exist, because the essence of public financial management is at the end of the day ensures that the monies that government generate, they are able to manage it in a way that can add value through service delivery to the ordinary citizen. So if I'll give an instance of how they have flaunted the law, you will check the audit law 2021, particularly section 16. I think we made reference to it last year, where there is a time frame that audit queries such as this that has been highlighted in the 2020 and 2021 report should have been responded to by these MDAs within 1 month maximum of these queries being sent to them by the Auditor General of the state. So it is very disturbing that from 2020, 2021, and we are in 2023, and we are still discussing issues that the law has clearly stated that it should be addressed within a month. So that also tells you that there is a lot of abuse of our laws by government agencies that should naturally set the example for citizens in terms of adhering to laws. Then also, if you go into that same law, I think in section 20, you see where it also clearly provides that the Public Accounts Committee should look at the reports of the Auditor General within a 3-month period and submit their findings to the Assembly, that is Committee of the Whole of the State Assembly, who also were given 1 month timeline to ensure that the resolutions are either adopted or rejected, and this is sent to the executive arm for implementation. So if all of these things are being abused, then it tells you that our financial system is being weakened by the day. And that is why every time people hear government make budgets of huge amounts annually, but when it comes to what is on ground, it is usually difficult to really compare and say yes, it's reflecting on the ground. Because why? Some of these loopholes that monies can be frittered away have not been blocked. And like I attended a program many years ago, 2010, I heard as of then that the highest channel through which public funds are diverted, for example, are through contracts and all of these things. So as long as we don't address these issues, and these are legal issues, people should be punished for abusing the law, for breaching the law. But if we cannot have that, then we would continue to suffer. And like we have highlighted last week also, there's the issue of revenue. The state is not generating enough revenue to address our increasing issues as the state, because the population of the state is increasing. Kaduna State, we are about 10 million people currently. So if the little resources we have are not applied to critical sectors, and beyond just being applied to critical sectors, but the financial regulations that have been set to ensure that these monies are managed efficiently and effectively, if these things are breached, then it means that government cannot deliver even in the promises that they have made. So also last week we also talked about issues of debt, which is a public financial management issue. We're looking at the third quarter performance, and what we found out is that debt service got 21 billion naira. But do you know that all of the sectors, none in the 3 quarters of 2023 were able to spend more than 20 billion naira? So what we are using to service our debt is higher than what we are spending in education, in health, and agriculture and other critical sectors. Then as I conclude, I want to talk of the agri sector specifically, because year in, year out, we do budget analysis around the agri sector. And what we have found out is that consistently, at least for the past 7 to 8 years, agriculture has continued to get less than 2% of the total budget of Kaduna State on average. And this is a sector that, based on the agricultural structural survey, is saying that about 1.3 million households in Kaduna are into the agri sector. And households mean that in a house you can have probably 5 to 7 people. So if you do the calculation, it tells you that the larger percentage of our population depend on agriculture. If you put that side by side with the fact that you have about 8 million multidimensionally poor people, then you will now say government is not spending in the sector that is supposed to directly impact people in terms of poverty reduction in the state. So that is one. So aside the fact that allocation has been consistently low, I think it's only 1 year that we had just about 3%, which was also because Development Partners Fund were added to the budget. That was why it increased it. You will now realize that in terms of performance of the agri budget, despite it being low in terms of allocation, there are issues of low releases and cash backing. So in a sector that has low allocation, has low releases and cash backing, we are still having issues with monies being not accounted for. Then it tells you that at the end of the day, there is barely any significant government investment in such a critical sector that contributes about 36% to our GDP and almost 42% of our labor workforce in Kaduna State. So these are issues that we need to really look at when we are talking about unaccounted funds, because the needs are increasing. So why should monies that should be directed or invested in addressing those needs now being unaccounted for? So this does not necessarily say the monies have been stolen, but as long as it is not accounted for, it is left for public opinion to give to interpret it as it is. So that's why transparency is critical. That's why adherence to compliance is also very, very critical in all of this conversation that we're having. So for us, we still feel that we have a new government in place. So we hope that they would not only look at what they are doing currently, but begin to ask the question, where were these monies invested in? 400 and something million naira worth of fertilizer. You know what it will do to ordinary farmers, or other inputs like chemicals, or even invested in land clearing. We have a lot of women that are marginalized within the agri sector and all of that. So just for emphasis, we need to really ensure that lack of compliance with financial regulations in terms of how our public funds are being managed is something that should be of concern to every resident of the state.
All right, quickly during the review of the 2020 and 2021 audit reports of Kaduna State, it was observed that Kaduna State Ministry of Youth and Sport has 3 audit issues with 122.4 million naira not accounted for. Can you kindly explain this to our listeners at home? Mr. Abdullahi Adebayo, if you are there. Okay, I think we are having some network glitches here. Mr. Abdullahi, are you there? Okay, before we get Mr. Abdullahi on a line, probably we could just, since we're having issues with the Zoom presently, maybe we could just pass a call through to him and ask him. Maybe he could explain better. Mr. Abdullahi, can you hear us now? Okay, he's still trying to connect to audio, having a very terrible. Let's just call him via phone so he could react to what's being discussed this morning. Still having network on all aspects. But before we join Mr. Abdullahi Adebayo on the question talking about the review of the 2021 and 2021 audit report of Kaduna State, which was observed that State Ministry of Youth and Sport has 3 audit issues with 124.4 million naira not accounted for. Maybe Mr. Yusuf, you could react to this before we can get Mr. Adebayo. Are you online?
Hello. Yeah, please, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. You got the question.
Please, can you repeat the question? I'm so sorry, my network has some kind of issue, so I needed to just have to turn off the video so that let me just use the audio alone.
It's okay.
So that I can reduce the bandwidth.
It's all right. Okay.
So what's the question?
During the review of the 2020 and 2021 audit report of Kaduna State, it was observed that Kaduna State Ministry of Youth and Sport has 3 audit issues with 122.4 million naira not accounted for. Can you explain this further to our listeners at home?
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for that. Just to say that I had the part of Mr. Yusuf very well, and of course, just to say, I know, like I said earlier, for the other 2 ministries, I think I really don't know how to say what is actually responsible for having this more of a cross-cutting issue across board, across all these agencies of government, both the ministries, agencies of government, having the issue of still boiling around the fact of this payment vouchers not available, and also not attaching supporting documents, relevant documents that would have to be that is actually the laws actually stated clearly to back up all expenditures of government. So that is, unfortunately, most of these agencies did not, or most of these ministries, perhaps, after spending money, they find it difficult to make all these documents available. One of which, the Ministry of Youth and Sports actually have 3 audit issues in the year 2020 and 2021 financial year, rather. And of course, the issue cuts across payment voucher not being provided, and also non-attachment of supporting documents to back up expenditure that amounted to about 122.4 million naira. One thing that actually strikes me is the fact that, looking at the context of the country where we have a significant growing population of young people, and of course, funds being allotted to, strengthen the development of youth in the states, perhaps is not properly being accounted for. I wouldn't know what the entire budget for that ministry was for that year, and of course, what was actually released to that ministry. But to say that 122.4 million naira is not accounted for in that, ministry, based on the fact that they could not provide documents to back up expenditure, that speaks to the relevance of what the relevance of the project, or the relevance of the expenditure, or how it ought to conform to not only service delivery or to improve social service in the states. It's something that it's actually disturbing, and it's also to say that what has the Public Account Committee does on this issue, since the issue has actually emanated, of course, the report has been submitted. We're talking about issues around 2021, and then we are almost at the end of 2023. Most states or most agencies are now preparing their 2024 budget, which I believe would probably, some of them, let's say before the end of this month, now you start seeing most of them submitting budget for 2024 to their state house assembly, and of course, to get ratification and also to sign it to the law. But it's just unfortunate that previous expenditures have not been cleared, has not been properly accounted for. And of course, they keep allocating money, spending money without proper accountability. And of course, it's boys to say something is a bit wrong in the system. And of course, the system really have to be strengthened. And I think that it's also important for citizens to start asking the rightful question in the rightful direction. Thank you.
Thank you for answering that. Now, what do you think, asking Mr. Yusuf Goje, what do you think citizens can do with this kind of information to demand accountability?
Well, the essence of making the Auditor General's report public is to empower citizens to demand that government justifies how they have utilized or expended every kobo that has been budgeted for. The budget in itself is supposed to carry the priority needs of residents of the state, and these needs are allocated funds, and these funds are public funds. They are not the funds of the governor, nor the funds of members of the State House of Assembly, or the funds of the commissioners. They are the funds for all the residents of Kaduna State. And because the budget is a law, once it is passed, it is expected that the utilization of these funds are in strict compliance with allocations in the budget, because even the governor, if he spends outside the budget, it is an impeachable offense. Okay. So it means that citizens whose funds are being budgeted for and passed into law should have the necessary information, which is why PLSI has decided to review these documents, pull out the information, simplify them so that citizens can begin to ask questions, begin to identify and say, how can we either directly go to these MDAs to write freedom of information to say, we saw in the Auditor General's report that this amount is unaccounted for. We need you to justify or to provide evidence that these monies were used as budgeted for. Or these residents can walk through their legislators, because if we have very effective legislators, these monies that we are saying are unaccounted for should not even arise, because they are expected to oversight all the various MDAs in terms of how they utilize the funds that they appropriated for the state. Then equally, the Public Accounts Committee should have reviewed all of these documents and also use it as an engagement, because they represent the citizens. They have the legal backing by virtue of the Constitution to ask most of these questions that citizens are also asking. So those are the two levels that citizens can continue to use this information to do that. If you don't know how, you can work with civil society organizations that work around governance, that work around accountability mechanism, to say that we are really interested in asking this question. But the challenge we have is that because these Auditor General's reports most of them have not been reviewed by the Public Accounts Committee and submitted to the Assembly for a resolution for some years now. We have backlog of these reports that have been unattended to. So it means that, for example, changes have also affected these ministries. We are talking of Ministry of Youth and Sports. Currently, we don't have Ministry of Youth and Sports, because it has been restructured. It's just Ministry of Youth Development. And the people that probably superintended the ministry during when these audit issues were raised might have either been retired for the civil servants, or the commissioner has been changed. So it makes it very difficult to really go back and investigate. But I think this is something that citizens should put pressure on government, that yes, these are issues that happened in 2020 and 2021, but we still want to know how were these monies utilized. Let's have this voucher made available. Then if there are people that need to be sanctioned, there's nothing that says that because you're no longer in the office, you cannot be punished for what you did during your stay in the office. So these are issues. If we don't put this pressure, and like I said last week, corruption will continue to persist where impunity reigns. So if people are not sanctioned for not accounting for how government funds are utilized, then that will continue to serve as incentives for others to do it, because after all, in pidgin English, nothing will happen. You get. So these are the issues that we need to look at. And As I conclude, if you look at the Auditor General for 2020 and 2021, the same issues have been reoccurring. For example, in terms of internal control, the Auditor General has been complaining about the internal auditors, because most of these things, they are supposed to be checkmated by the internal auditors resident in the ministries, even before the accountant general provides the financial statements to the auditor general. So because the auditor general end up getting the report of the financial accountant general after the year has ended. But with internal auditors, these issues can be identified early, and also if there are areas of remedy, it could be remedied early. So we cannot get it right until we ensure that the internal control, which should be carried out by internal auditors in the MDAs, do the work they are supposed to do. Then we'll continue to have these issues continue. And that is why, even as civil society, we have consistently advocated that there needs to be a cadre for internal auditors, because at the end of the day, people that are appointed internal auditors may just be stooges, if I'll use that word, of the accounting officer. So you can't go and be questioning somebody that has placed you there, has appointed you in that position. You get, because he's the one putting you there, and he will be expecting that you'll be loyal to him.
Yeah.
So when you identify issues, even you'll be afraid to go and meet him, because before you know, you could be transferred and all of you. But if there's a professional cadre in the system where these are internal auditors and they are answerable to the Auditor General of the state, then it gives them a level of independence that they can be able to identify these issues and also raise alarms timely. So I think that is very critical.
All right, quickly, I just got information that Mr. Abdullahi Adebayo have a meeting to attend to. But before you go, any recommendations to the concerned government institutions and citizens on this audit information? Mr. Abdullahi.
All right, thank you so much. Just like I said last week, one of the key things I would advise is that everybody should actually see this as their own project. Citizens should actually see themselves as a key stakeholders in government, in governance, and certainly it is also important for them to start, engage in the process and leverage available information to demand accountability. One challenge to demanding accountability is access to information. But when you have access to information, and which is one of the things we are doing at PLSI, trying to bridge the information gap, the communication gap between the government and also the citizens, so that when they see accountability information, they can actually leverage it to demand the rightful question from the from the authority. So I would advise the citizens to start engaging in the process, use the public audit information to demand accountability. And also, I also advise my recommendation to that of the government entity is the fact that, like we said, the public audit circle is a circle where it starts from the Auditor General, and of course it keeps revolving around both to that of the public account and also to the executive, to the State House of Assembly and that to the executive. I would just say that every one of them should pick up their responsibility. The Auditor General should keep pushing out his own reports timely, and also the Public Account Committee should review the reports and publish their reports timely also, so that citizens can actually know how the chain is moving and to identify the necessary gaps across this chain. And at the same time, also, executive body to also do the needful by implementing the recommendation of the committee of the whole of the House. So that is what I would say. And also, lastly, before I would leave, I would say that we have a dedicated platform, that's Value for Money platform, where citizens can actually access different information when it comes to audited financial audited projects across both at the national and also at the subnational level. That is www.valueformoney.ng. They can always access there to see different informations on different projects ranging from the states and also the federal level across project has actually been audited, and of course, to see the status of all this project, to see value and money that probably has actually been abandoned or project has been abandoned or maybe funds that have actually been released, and also to understand the process, and of course to have the information to demand rightful question. And lastly, I would say that also come November 30, we'll also be organizing the maiden edition of the Nigerian Accountability Summit here in Abuja, here, where we are bringing together key stakeholders in the accountability sector, both at the national and subnational level, to then discuss what are the problems and what are the likely solutions. So I think that's all I have to say for now. I'm so sorry I won't be able to join to the end of the of today's show. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, thank you, Mr. Abdullahi Adebayo, for being part of the program. We expect to have you again next week.
Thank you. I will be joining.
All right, thank you. And that's Mr. Abdullahi Adebayo, and he is the program officer, Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative. And today we are taking on the topic audit issues in Ministry of Health, Ministry of Youth and Sport, Ministry of Agriculture. And with me in the studios, Mr. Yusuf Goji, and that's the head of Governance and Advocacy Coalitions of Associations for Leadership, Peace, Empowerment and Development. You can be part of this program if you have contributions, questions to ask our guest in the studios. The number to call is 081 40,000 989, 081 40,000 989, 07087 800 989, 07087 800 989, 081 400 989, 081 400 989. Streaming live on Facebook in Invicta FM 98.9. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Your name and where you calling from? Okay, Otumba Rufai. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let's hear you.
Yes, Mr. Joseph Gojo, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir. You see, my take on this is the issue of this report that was brought out. That now that the report is out, if citizenry cannot, are not able to react, what about the civil society groups? Can they do the same as what Sarat is doing? Maybe to take any agency or ministry that is concerned, if you ask for the question and you are not satisfied, can't you maybe act for the citizenry and take them to court that you need accountability for that? And moreover, again, majority of this report should be brought out so that people will know, instead of what we have now, Ministry of Youth and Sport, there is no more, that we have Ministry of Youth and Development. By the time you have those that have gone, is somehow to call for. And that's what we are saying, that institutions are supposed to be working. It's not necessarily whether you are there or you are not there. It's high time that Nigerians, all our institutions, are supposed to be working effectively and efficiently so that we have a proper accountability so that Nigeria can move forward. Good morning, sir.
All right, thank you for being part of the program. They can also be part on 081 40,000 989, 081 40,000 989. All right, Mr. Yusuf, I want to believe that you can react to the question.
Yes, I totally agree with Mr. Rufai, right?
Yes.
Yes, I think the judiciary, the courts, are part of what is called horizontal accountability, where you have the state assembly, you have the judiciary, you have the fiscal responsibility commission. These are institutions created to hold the executive arm accountable. So when all of the other institutions don't give you what you want, the law provides that you can take the government to court, because like we have highlighted in our discussion, it is a legal issue where agencies of government or ministries don't respond to audit queries. They are expected to be sanctioned and all of that. So if they break the law, then it means the courts are there. So I agree with him, but again, we must realize that SERAP, if I would say, have their own sources of funding that enables them to always take the federal government to court, and even to some state governments. But again, if you come down to Kaduna, considering the cost of litigation, not all civil societies have the resources to engage in the state government in court. So, but I gave the Nigerian Bar Association and other organizations like that can actually do pro bono if they agree they want to do pro bono around these cases. Civil society, after all, they are even part of the civil society. There could be collaboration to do that. Taking government to court not necessarily is you're fighting government, but it's just saying that there is a law, government, you did not follow that law, and we are using the courts to ensure that you follow the law, or you account for why you did not follow the law. And if there are people that should be punished, they should be punished, because Nigeria is bigger than every individual as a collective. So this is why the courts are there, but it's not easy considering the long time it takes in court. There are cases that take 10 years. There are cases 20 years and all of that. When you even look at the records that Serap has, you find out that it has lost more cases in court, or more cases have continued to drag for longer than the one it has won at the end of the day. So it's a combination of the fact that the courts themselves are not in a position to give us speedy litigations that will enable us hold government accountable as at when do. But I agree totally there is a step that is necessary as our democracy matures.
All right. Good morning. Your name and where you're calling from?
Yeah, Shemang calling from Mozambique.
Let's hear you, Shemang.
Yes, I appreciate the discussion with our brother out there. The problem of this country is issue of corruption. People feel government money is nothing. They handle it the way they handle it. So had it been that transparency in governance, what we are passing through in this state, especially Kaduna State, you cannot be facing what we are facing. Issue of budget, you hear a bogus budget being appropriated to a ministry, but you never see anything on ground done by such a ministry. The Ministry of Agriculture is supposed to be a very giant ministry that touches life, but it is the irony what we are seeing in Nigeria. Come to think of education. Kaduna State happens to be one of the best states in terms of education in Nigeria, in the northern part of Nigeria. But when Empire was in power, to reduce the days of schools to 4 days. Private public school don't go to school. It's only private school that go to school. Then how can you quantify the private and the public students in terms of academics, their performance? Because they are not looking to the curriculum of each year. So instead of public school coming up to Friday, they are coming just on Thursday. And private schools are coming up to Friday. Is it fair that students in public school are being limited to Thursdays, and public and private schools are always covering to Fridays? That's my question, sir.
All right, thank you. Very good question from Shemang. Mr. Yusuf.
Well, I totally agree with him. There is practically nothing more to add to what he has said. The major thing for us as all citizens, and that's what I will have to say, is that, and I think it's John Adams that was quoted to say that power must not be given to anybody without it being checked. So when you elect people, you have to hold them accountable. If you don't hold them accountable, then you have yourself more or less to blame. We are in a situation where voting, most times we vote candidates during election, and after elections we go to sleep. Where are all the support groups that were supporting the various candidates? Most of them are no longer anywhere to be found. So we must change that culture. The way we come out and say we are supporting candidate A, candidate B, and candidate C, before election. After election, we should organize ourselves in the same way to ask him or her, how are you using the monies that we have entrusted in your hands to do that? If we don't do that, we'll continue to be in the same position. And one thing we must also realize is that democracy is hard work. It's not a spectator sport. It's a sport that involves players. Everybody must be a player, whether you're in government or out of government. When you're out of government, you have civic responsibilities to ensure that every kobo that government spends is accounted for and is utilized in a way that will bring about inclusive development that will benefit people at the end of the day. So that's basically what we are talking about, because every day we hear there is no money, but every day we see the lifestyle of those in government looking flashy, so what money are they using? Where are they getting those monies? And government is not a business enterprise where people go in to make money. It's supposed to be for public service. So how come people just go into government and make money? So it means that probably aside their salaries, because that is probably what they are only entitled to, their salaries and allowances, the only other money at their disposal is monies that should be used for public services. So if they are not doing any business, after all, you're not even allowed to do business when you're in government, then where are they getting the money that they are buying the flashy cars, building the mansions? It means that these are monies that are meant for public services that people tend to, but that's just an assumption. But the only way to find out if that is the reality is to ensure that we engage, we ask the right questions, and we hold those in government accountable.
All right, Mr. Yusuf Goje, time is fast spent, and as it is right now, I just want you to, probably in like a minute, if there's any specific message to the listener.
Well, the quality of governance and development we would get is dependent largely on the quality of our participation and engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf Goje, Head of Governance and Advocacy Coalitions of Associations for Leadership, Peace, Empowerment and Development. We just took a look at the topic, audit issues in Ministry of Health, Ministry of Youth and Sports, and Ministry of Agriculture, and the program brought to you by Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative, which is a Nigerian non-profit organization established in 2016, and with the mission to enhance accountability, foster good governance, and enhance development in marginalized and undeserved communities by promoting active citizens' engagement with the public audit system and processes in Nigeria. Well, that's it. That's about the size of the program. Today, we want to thank you for being part of the show. My name is Jeffrey Mbede Adiku. This program will make a return, same time, same station, next week.